home office in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's the top 10 reasons to listen to Nothing Worthwhile's top 10 movie podcast. Number 10, elicit stories about Groo's extensive love life. Number 9, want to promote our other podcast about nearly illegal German porn. Number 8, want to listen to a 5-star podcast review? That's 5 people giving it 1 star apiece. Number 7, listen to it live before it streams on Hulu. Number 6, increase our overall viewership to 6. Number 5, want to hear the extended remix of Jane. Number 4, listen to Groo explain why Norbit is a really good movie. Number 3, Buttafuoco. Number 2,
no one is going to get that joke.
Groo's back hair. And the number 1 reason to listen to Nothing Worthwhile's top 10 movie podcast. Nothing better than 2 loser Jews talking about pop culture for over 2 hours. What a listen! Yeah! Dulcet sounds of Jane, Mickey Thomas and Grace Slick. It is Nothing Worthwhile. Evan Moody with Andrew Gruthius. How the hell are you, my friend?
Is that Mickey Thomas in there, or was this before Mickey Thomas joined the band?
It's Mickey Thomas.
Interesting.
And funny enough, Howard Stern released on YouTube, or on the XM app, he had Mickey Thomas come in. And
I did see that.
I don't know what they did, but they did a Starship era song with Mickey Thomas.
And we can build this thing together. Stand. That was a theme song from Mannequin, my second favorite movie of all time. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Well, I think you're either going to really love and understand my list, or you're going to completely hate and despise it. But today, right now, we are going to do our top 10 movie podcast. So Groo and I have both constructed our top 10 list. We have both constructed our not top 10, 5 to 7 movies that did not make it. I just have my list, and that's it. Off the top of our heads, this could be a real good one. I'll toss it to you, Groo. How do you want to start? And we'll go from there.
We'll go from 10. I'll do my 10, my number 10, then you'll do your number 10, then your number 9, then my number 9, till we go down.
Do you want to go over just real quick thoughts on our movies that maybe did not make the final cut, or
okay, yeah, I can. You mean the honorable mentions?
Yeah, I have 5 that I had originally in my list, and by my stupid process of elimination, did not make it, but I would consider pretty solid movies on their own.
I have 7.
All right, why don't you start? We'll just trade off and give our thoughts on the movie and your choices. Why don't you start off? Give us one that was close, but did not make your top 10.
Okay. The first one that did not make the top 10 will surprise you. First one is The Godfather Part 2.
Interesting.
Did not make the top 10. Another one that did not make the top 10. I'm going to go with the familiar ones and then the more obscure ones. So
go ahead.
I'm just going to go through them quickly. So Godfather Part 2, City Slickers. I love that movie. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Young Frankenstein.
Go ahead.
What?
No. I'm enjoying hearing it. That's
Kramer versus Kramer.
Okay, good.
The Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
The Champ, the 1979 version, Jon Voight, and Finding Nemo. Shut up.
Okay.
And finally, a very little seen movie that nobody knows of, but in honor of the late great Danny Aiello, a movie called 29th Street. Have you heard of 29th Street?
No, of course you have to put something in there to make me feel.
Oh, this is like my family's favorite movie.
I think it'll be interesting when you hear my 5, and it'll sort of kind of illustrate you and I, maybe our differences in terms of movies or what movies we consider great. My first one was Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Ooh, yeah, tough one.
My second one was Jerry Maguire.
Interesting.
My third one was Iron Man.
Oy.
Number 4 was The Fugitive.
Iron Man is not cinema.
And number 5, simply for the reason this was the most excited I ever was to see a movie, was Howard Stern's Private Parts.
Can I just say one thing, though?
Sure.
When you and I saw Private Parts together, we were at the premiere at the Paramount Theater in New York City, where Howard and crew did the whole introduction. We met a few people that night. We met, remember David Peel we ran into in the hallway. We saw the Jesus twins, one of whom went to Camp, or both of them went to Camp Wayne, where we grew up. And I remember at the end of the movie, we were discussing it, and you said it was good. You've seen better, you've seen worse. That was your quote. Are you telling me that it's consistently grown on you over the years to put it in almost cracking your top 10?
Well, I think maybe it got emeritus status for my top 10. I think it has grown, I don't know, considerably. When we talked about top 10 movies, I really thought about movies that really changed. I don't know if this is going to sound like too over the top, changed my life, or I really walked out of the theater going, wow. I do think it's Howard Stern Private Parts is a good to very good movie, and it has consistently grown on me. It's a sweet movie right there in line with Pretty Woman. I had never been so excited to see a movie before, and it met my expectations. It didn't blow them away, which maybe was a little bit of a fault in the movie, but I guess I just put it in there to somehow cram in my hero Howard or something like that.
My list, and including the honorable mentions, but my list is basically I try to put movies that really changed the way I watch movies. Or introduced me to certain kinds of things. You know, I used to be in the movie business, so I am, obviously, it's one of the most interesting things to me. So each one represents something, and that made it difficult to leave some of, like, for example, 2 of the funniest movies I've ever seen. One would be Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The other one would be National Lampoon's Vacation.
Okay.
They're not on either of my lists. I thought about it, and I just could not justify. They didn't change things the way so many of these others did, but they were still, and they still to this day, make me bust a gut laughing.
Okay, it's all a matter of opinion. Before we start, I had said that the following 3 movies will be on your list. I said that The Godfather, Rocky, and Groundhog's Day. And you said, I don't have the text, I think you said Aliens for me.
No, I said Alien, the first Alien.
Alien, what was the other 2? Do you remember?
I think one was, now let me look at the text. Hold on. I'm going to go back.
I just want to write that down on my notes to see if we were correct at all.
Moody and I text all the time. Okay, here we go. I've got Alien, Pulp Fiction, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off for you.
Okay. All right, let's get to our top 10. I'm really excited to hear what you think of mine and to hear yours. Since you started the not top, I'll go with my first one. I'm going to give you my movie, and I'm just going to go off the top of my head as to my thoughts. Won't keep it too long. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But my number 10 movie was Die Hard.
Die Hard.
Walked out of the theater emotionally tired, drained. I think it was the real prototype for the big budget popcorn action movie, and I had never seen a movie with that. It's been copied a million times since. Us Against the World sort of format where you take one hero and he's not against one bad guy, but he's against 15 and he systematically survives and pops them all off. I thought the whole backdrop of the technology building, the new building, Bruce Willis also, it had been done before, but, you know, the wisecracking, sarcastic hero who's placed, everyday man who's placed into unbelievable circumstances. That's a movie that, you know, I really walked out of the theater pretty charged up, pretty changed. I know you've referenced Die Hard as well. So my number 10 is Die Hard.
Yeah, I agree with you about so many things about Die Hard. It changed a lot of things because up until then, action movies, like action vehicles like Stallone or Schwarzenegger or Van Damme even at that point, or Chuck Norris, it was also them against the world, but they were also invincible. Die Hard gave us a character that was far from invincible, that was scared, that was fatigued, that was trying to get the hell out of there, and he kept, like, one of my favorite things about it was how he was like, oh, what the hell are you doing on top of this building? What do you do? Like, all of that stuff, and plus, it pulled off a trick that most movies try and fail to do. There was a point in that movie when we are actually rooting for the bad guys.
No, I was never.
Oh, come on! When that idiot police guy was sending the RV in, and we all knew that it was a mistake. You don't want the police fighting these guys. You want John McClane fighting these guys. That was a very interesting trope to me, and yes, I love Die Hard. I will continue with my number 10.
I want to say the word trope.
My number 10 actually was a late addition. Since the time we decided to do this, the one that was in the number 10 spot is now nowhere to be found, and the number 10 spot was taken by a little movie from the mid-'80s, shocker, called Hoosiers. Now, I've always loved Hoosiers. I mean, it's a perfect movie in many, many different ways, but I hadn't seen it in a while, and it was on I want to say less than a week ago, and I watched it, and I couldn't believe how great it really was. I mean, every scene and every moment. My favorite sports movie is Miracle with Kurt Russell. I don't consider Hoosiers a sports movie, even though the backdrop is basketball. It's really a drama. That's what I loved about it. Hoosiers is just incredible. And it builds up every character, and you know the names of these guys, and you know everybody, and you're part of that little rinky-dink town. And when they're going into the big, state championship, you're going in there with them. I mean, the writing and directing in that movie is perfection. So number 10, Hoosiers for me.
I mean, to me, Gene Hackman's clearly the winner of that movie. Obviously was aware of Gene Hackman as an actor before that movie, but to me, that's his movie. The grizzled coach with maybe a little bit of secrecy to his past rediscovers himself in small town America. Great choice. Can't disagree with that at all.
And now I'll go to my number 9. We won't have to talk much because we already did. My number 9 is Die Hard.
Wow. Yaka. Yay.
We agree. Wait. Let me find a bell. No, I can't find a bell. Number 9 is Die Hard, which we've talked about. Let's move on to your number 9.
My number 9 is Goodfellas. Goodfellas is the Godfather for my generation. Right. I was still a little young for The Godfather, though I've seen it many a times. Goodfellas to me was the template mob movie of my time. Trio of just amazing actors. Although I think it's ultimately Ray Liotta's movie at the end. I was hooked. The frenetic pace really kind of kicked off my interest in, De Niro and that genre of movie, the Italian mobster movie. Just a sweeping saga. Number 9, Godfather for my generation, Goodfellas.
Goodfellas was my introduction to the Scorsese De Niro world. Like, I had never seen any Scorsese. Now, keep in mind, that was 1990. I was 15 years old. I did see it in the movies. I'd never seen Raging Bull. I'd never seen Taxi Driver or Mean Streets. Never saw any of those. And Goodfellas opened up that whole world of movie making. Goodfellas is as close to, I keep using the word perfect, but it'd be tough to dig to find something wrong with that movie. So Goodfellas, I cannot argue at all with. Goodfellas is, that movie just grabs you by the throat from the very beginning and does not let go until even after the credits are over. Even with that Sid Vicious cover of My Way by Frank Sinatra, it's still grabbing at your throat. They do things in that movie I did not know that movies could do. So Goodfellas, I'm right on board there with you.
Curious to hear your thoughts. My number 8 was Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Interesting.
To me, that's the preeminent Tom Hanks movie. The actor that I consider maybe the greatest of my generation, or certainly one of the best. I think it's sort of like the Ben-Hur of our time. It's not a Roman gladiator. It really follows one man from early days right until older male. I love the way how they intersperse Forrest throughout some of the key points of history. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's a guy who's mentally challenged, and it's got a lot more meaning. That's another thing I enjoy of the movie. It's got some trippy undertones to it, some hidden elements. But I think, to me, it's a real saga. When I sit down, I think that is the Tom Hanks movie. For my generation, I super enjoyed it. Yeah, number 8, Forrest Gump.
There's no doubt Forrest Gump is a great movie. I don't think it's aged that well, but it's still a great watch. And I love those epic movies that really take you on a journey from beginning to end, from point A to point B. The way that Forrest Gump, that the writers make it really all about the girl. That's really why Gump goes through everything that he does. And I think that probably was what they had in mind when they sat down to write it, and it comes across on screen. As far as Tom Hanks goes, he won the Academy Award for it, his second in a row, the first one for Philadelphia. You can't argue. I mean, some of the names that they've tossed out about Forrest Gump, about who might have played Forrest Gump, one was Bill Murray, and you know how much I love Bill Murray, but I don't see that. I think John Travolta was also up for that, but that was Tom Hanks at his absolute best, although if you asked me what I think Tom Hanks' greatest performance is, what do you think it would be? It'll surprise you. You'll never get it.
Philadelphia?
No. Philadelphia, he was very good, but he got the Oscar because it took guts to play that role. Remember the timing of that. That was like... Yeah. He got that
let me go on a limb. Turner and Hooch?
Close. My favorite Tom Hanks performance, his best acting job to me, is The Green Mile.
Okay, good movie. Very good movie.
That's not on my list, so we don't need to talk about it. So now I will go with my number 8 is First Blood. Yeah, I know. Yeah. This movie has always been, even before Die Hard, this was my introduction to action movies, and it still remains my favorite action movie ever. There's just something about it, and I watch it at least twice a year, and I always pick up new things about it, and it's almost like the sequels to it, for better or worse, they actually make the original one better in a strange way.
They make the original better because some of them are kind of bad, and they almost border on parody.
But that's not why. The reason why is because...
Well, that's not the reason why for you, but that's
for me. Yeah, for me.
We're talking about our opinion.
And the reason why they make the first one better is because the way Rambo, and I love the Rambos. The only one, including Last Blood, the only one I really don't like is Rambo 3. The reason that they do that is because Rambo became this all-American superhero in all the sequels. You have to kick yourself to remind you that in the first one he was kind of the villain in a way. He wasn't the villain, but he was the chaser, not the chasee. And those supporting characters in that movie, Brian Dennehy is the sheriff, and then Richard Crenna, and even a young David Caruso as one of the hit cops. I just love that movie from beginning to end. I am a huge, huge First Blood mark, as you were.
Yeah. Listen, what can I say? Not my choice. I think First Blood had a lot of integrity. I think the others, especially 2 and 3, not quite so much. Brian Dennehy, great. I mean, David Caruso, he's not on the screen. I wouldn't say it's a small role, but it's certainly not much of a role. Listen, top 10, I wouldn't put it there, but it's a favorite of mine. I certainly won't turn it off. But hey, look, that's your opinion, but you're a Stallone mark.
Yeah, I am.
All right.
I won't, when you're looking at your favorite stuff, you're looking at your favorite people, right? In the spirit of that, I will go on to my number 7. And number 7 was actually my number 1 for a long time. It's still one of the greatest.
You know what it is, folks? He can't get to it. He's got to, there's twists, there's turns. He's got to put in cool millennial words like trope. Let me hear. Go ahead.
It is, who you going to call? Ghostbusters is my number 7. Wait a minute. Are you arguing with me that Ghostbusters isn't one of the best movies ever? It's incredible. What they were able to accomplish with that, I mean, it's hilarious, even in some ways a little scary. It's exciting. It's got a Bill Murray tour de force.
It's my favorite.
I just love Ghostbusters, always have.
Right.
I enjoy Ghostbusters too, but it's not a good movie.
You'll like then my number 7 and say this is an even better comedy. My number 7 is National Lampoon Vacation.
Yeah, I knew it.
Changed my life. I mean, I remember my dad sneaking me in, Rockville Center, laughed. And we've had it before, and I'm sure there have been movies before, but the well-meaning suburban dad who just fucks everything up, has no luck, this sort of vacation gone awry. Iconic scenes, Christy Brinkley, the grandmother dying, stapled to the car, drinking that first beer with Rusty, getting lost in the desert. And I am not, surprisingly, not a huge Chevy Chase guy, but I mean, I guess to me, this is, if I had to pick one piece that sums it up. And again, the sequels have been very, very uneven. But to me, this is a classic, like a Christmas Story. It's got to be a yearly watch, even if it's just one time. Loved it from beginning to end. I think a better overall comedy and a lot more laughs than Ghostbusters. But just my opinion, my number 7 was Vacation.
Yeah. See, this was a tough one for me because National Lampoon's Vacation, when you're asking me about like the top couple funniest movies ever, Vacation is one of them. It was a tough one to leave off. Ghostbusters just kind of changed so many things for me. But I remember when I first saw Vacation, it was in my friend's basement. It was me, my buddy, and our dads. It was almost like a Sunday. They were sneaking us this R-rated movies, and they just told us there were going to be naked women in it, and we're like, all right, let's watch it. And I remember all of us collectively screaming with laughter twice. And that was one when he falls asleep at the wheel, which is, to me, the biggest laugh in movie history. Harold Ramis directed that and wrote it with John Hughes. It just shows you how brilliant these guys were. The timing of it, the timing of the joke with the ant on the roof is textbook set-up punchline, and it's one of the funniest moments in movie history, and I cannot argue with that at all. I'm not putting it up against Ghostbusters. It is one of the funniest movies of all time. Love the pick. I'm writing yours down as I go, and I can't not like any of these. Die Hard, Goodfellas, Forrest Gump, National Lampoon's Vacation. They're all 4-star movies for me.
I think number 6, moving on in. These are really my wheelhouse movies. These are clearly, I walked out of the theater a changed little boy, changed man. My number 6 is Terminator 2. To me, it's probably the greatest action popcorn movie of all time. It continues on probably the greatest single story franchise, which is the Terminator. Love the direction they took the movie. But just to me, greatest action popcorn. The special effects at that point were just unseen. The CGI really kicked off that whole deal with movies, in my opinion, and maybe not always for the betterment of overall film. When I think about the greatest big budget action popcorn movie of all time, I mean, sitting on the edge of my seat, loving every which way they took the movie, Terminator 2.
Not on my list, probably should be, but it's one of the best movies ever made. And I've always said that. You remember we saw it together?
Yes.
We saw it together over the summer on our day off. We went to see Terminator 2. We were with the wonderful Howie Robinson, Jay House, Mike Herman, all our buddies from back in the days at summer camp, and we love that movie. That movie's incredible. It really is. Yeah. The sequels make that one look better for an entirely different reason than Rambo.
I guess. Yeah, I try not to factor in the sequels, but I just know when I walked out of that theater, I saw something unique. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, beyond the movie, the special effects were just a level that I had not seen as a young moviegoer up to that point.
Like I said, it's still one of the greatest movies ever made. What you're describing didn't happen to me for that, and the reason is because by that point in my life, I was sort of like a movie guy, so I knew what to expect with the special effects. So it wasn't like it blew me away. I had already seen and I already knew that T2 was going to be groundbreaking. So it's not like I went in cold and walked out of there like, holy crap, I can't believe they did that. That's why I didn't walk out of there like that movie changed everything. But I still walked out of it like that was one of the best movies I've ever seen. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
basically you're saying you're a nuanced movie snob, and I'm just...
I walked right into that one.
I'm just a mere peasant who was amazed at the cheap special effects, and I didn't look at the hardcore acting. And I understand what you're saying. I get it, but I just know when I walked out of there, I mean, if you had to boil it down to one thing, of course I enjoyed the characters and the acting, but those special effects, especially the bad Terminator, I had not seen anything like that
Right.
up until that point. You know, maybe in some ways it kicked off this almost relying on CGI, which is, I think, hurt some of the current product, for better or worse. Yeah, Terminator 2 was my number 6.
My number 6 is 48 Hours. What you just see? I'm giving yours respect, and you're just laughing at every single one of mine.
I love it because we just talked about it. We just talked about it 20 minutes ago.
I know, but 48 Hours has always been on my list. It introduced me to Eddie Murphy. It introduced me to the cop action buddy movie, and also, if you look at that movie, I mean, yes, it was a different time. But the risks that they took, it's almost like they said, let's just throw in the kitchen sink and do whatever the hell we want to do. What would these characters say? It wasn't the woke generation. It wasn't all that stuff. And that movie is so misogynistic and so racist and so everything. It still manages to be brilliant.
I don't disagree. 48 Hours has a grittiness that you don't see in today's movies. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was just racist, misogynist.
No. I'm just saying.
No. Hold on.
That's not why I like it.
No, but it's the same reason why we enjoyed Sam Kinison and early Howard Stern. It was trying to prove a bigger point about ignorance or about culture and class. But yeah, there was a grittiness there, and some of that stuff certainly would not fly today. And no qualms with that choice at all.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to go with my number 5 now.
Go ahead.
And this is getting down to my wheelhouse.
The nitty-gritty.
The nitty-gritty. My number 5 is another movie I saw in the theater during camp. And that is...
give us the movie.
Well, it's the experience of it.
Okay, go ahead.
So while peasants like you were in the other theater at the Binghamton Mall watching Coming to America, real movie scholars like myself, Mark Brandis, David Yeager, Matt Gordon, Jeff Piggy Gilden were in theater. We're in theater number 2. We're in the theater number 2 watching a movie called Midnight Run.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody out there, all 2 of you, I can see Evan, but he can't see me, and I just see the look on his face. Oh, come on, man.
Let me hear your rationale behind it, or your opinion.
It's one of the best scripts I've ever seen. Just the way they weave so many different things together and keep you guessing. But having all these story points, so many different story points, and watching these guys go from point A to point B, and all the different people who are after the Charles Grodin character, and what's driving it is the relationship between De Niro and Charles Grodin. And that's what drives it, and that's what ends it. Aside from being one of the funniest movies, it's also exciting as hell, and it's moving in some ways. It's always been one of my favorite movies since I saw it. Incredibly quotable. In fact, my cousin Alex and I can quote it from beginning to end.
Here we go.
Midnight Run with Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin, the late, great Dennis Farina in a great performance as the lead mobster, Jimmy Serrano. Joey Pants, Joe Pantoliano. Great cast in that movie. Yaphet Kotto.
And again, he loves name dropping and Yaphet Kotto.
Richard Ferrangi.
In some semblance, was that De Niro's first or move towards a little bit more commercial appeal?
Yes, he had done a couple of light comedies beforehand, but Midnight Run was the director of that was Martin Brest, who had also directed Beverly Hills Cop. It was somebody who knew what he was doing. It was really De Niro finding the comedy in his anger. He's taking the usual character that he plays, and he's finding the funny spin on it, because he's really the straight guy in it. Grodin is the comedy guy, and De Niro, just watching him get more and more frustrated as the movie goes on, is one of the funniest things in the movie. So yes, And that opened him up to movies like Analyze This and other things. But before then, he really hadn't done much comedy.
Let me give you my number 5, and I think it juxtaposes a little bit how Groo and I see movies similar and different. My number 5 was Aliens.
Oh, I missed it by one letter.
Part of that great James Cameron run. First of all, I had not seen Alien prior to Aliens. I remember seeing it. I was a young man, Lynbrook, New York movie theater. And just,
come on. What do you just tell us? What? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, well, I mean, for me, it was just once the action started going, it just never stopped. I'm a huge science fiction fan, a huge science fiction junkie. I like to even read books. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a movie I thought about, but I was still very young to put it on this list. But basically, for me, I love where Cameron takes sort of an isolation horror movie, which is Alien, and then sort of takes it into this crazy action genre that does not stop. I think for me, probably off the top of my head, right there with T2, I would say Aliens, maybe the greatest sequel of my generation, my lifetime, or my experience. Sigourney Weaver, great cast, Michael Biehn. Love the whole military on an isolated planet with bad monsters on it. Newt, the child that she's never had. Just that part of that amazing Cameron, Terminator, Aliens 2 sort of run that to some extent still continues this day. Aliens was my number 5.
Aliens is an incredible movie. And you actually just ruined the idea I had for another podcast of us doing the top sequels of all time. You have 2 of them on there.
We can still do that.
I was going to throw Lethal Weapon 2 into that mix. Aliens is incredible. It's a true sequel. It takes the original story to a completely different place, a completely different backdrop, instead of just repeating what came before, like most sequels tend to do. I give credit to James Cameron. He wrote and directed it. Ridley Scott directed the first one. The first one was a straight horror movie.
It was unique in itself.
Oh, yeah.
Space, claustrophobic, isolation setting.
I also love how James Cameron was not afraid to take a supporting character from the original and make her the lead in this movie. Ripley was not the main person. It ended that way. Tom Skerritt, I forgot his name in the first one, but he was the main
Dallas.
Person. Yes, Dallas.
Yeah.
What a great movie name.
Well, I'll save that argument for another time.
I think Alien is a great pick.
Okay. I think you'll like my number 4 and maybe a little bit surprised at my number 4.
Okay.
My number 4 is the original Karate Kid.
I love your pick.
Walked out of there doing my fake karate moves, but more importantly, it's sort of also in that diehard one man overcoming incredible odds. And I know that there's probably a ABC movie of the week, but that whole bully concept, young kid moving into a new town, new school, getting bullied, the wise old man helping him. I think almost the karate aspect is secondary. Ralph Macchio, fantastic performance, but really to me it's a Pat Morita movie, actually. Yes. That's where he's the winner. Very basic formula premise, but they did it almost to perfection. You know, when I started thinking about movies where I walked out and felt changed, inspired, different, it ended up on my list, surprisingly enough. And so my number 4, and again, I think it's a premise that's been done a million times, but they did it better than maybe anybody else, The Karate Kid.
I can't argue with that, and I did think about putting it on there. These are tough lists to make, but let me ask you a question about your so far up to number 4. You got Die Hard, Goodfellas, Forrest Gump, Vacation, Terminator 2, Aliens, and The Karate Kid. Did you see every single one of these in the movie theater for the first time?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. See, that's the difference between your list and my list. 4 of them I did not see in the theater.
Which is surprising to me because you always talk about how going to the theater, you seem to, that, really embellishes the experience.
They're older. They go back a little further. A couple of them, I was barely 1 year old. But yeah, Karate Kid, and I saw that in the theater, and I walked out of there changed just like you. I have a fondness for the sequels, as horrible as they are. Sometimes it's just fun. I am a huge fan of the Cobra Kai television show, and I think you would be too if you watched it. That's my assignment for you for next podcast.
All right, no problem. Let me hear your number 4.
My number 4, we don't have to talk about it because it is on your list as number 9. My number 4 is Goodfellas.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah. Well, I walked out of there changed, like, wow, like I've just seen something that's going to last forever.
So right now, Groo, we have had 2 movies cross over on the list.
Die Hard and Goodfellas. And so far, you have guessed, what were your 3 guesses of mine?
Godfather, Rocky, and Groundhog's Day.
You haven't hit any yet, and I haven't hit any of yours yet.
Interesting. Let me hear your number 3.
All right, well, number 3 is The Godfather.
All right.
And The Godfather is, what can I say that hasn't been said? It's just, you don't get better movies than The Godfather, really. I mean, it's basically, these lists are all how they affected us. The Godfather is just once in a lifetime kind of experience. And it's one of the very few movies that you can watch anytime, anywhere, no matter what. It's one of those that if it's on TV, the rest of my day is completely botched. You can't put it down. I don't even need to get into it. There are so many other podcasts and so many like YouTube videos that talk about The Godfather and deconstruct The Godfather. No case needs to be made, I don't think.
I can't argue with that choice. I think for me, I was a little young. I can't argue with that choice. I mean, kicked off how many great acting careers and maybe the symbolic Italian movie mobster saga of all time. I can't argue at all. Great choice.
So now we get to our top 3.
Is this me?
Wait. I just needed, just a little, we're still working on that. You start with your number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is The Sixth Sense. That ending, there was an audible gasp in the theater. I knew nothing of M. Night Shyamalan. I mean, he turned out to have a couple of clunkers, but he had a pretty phenomenal run there for a while. Look, I don't know Bruce's career. I'm sure you'll spout off every single movie in his filmography, but Bruce does a great it's a pure acting job there. It's not action. I was mesmerized by the plot, but the ending, Groo, I remember when the credits rolled up, it just a gasp in the theater, like the oxygen was sucked out. That one I didn't see coming. I was a lot younger back then.
But you were still a teacher. You were still an adult,
Yeah, mood, perspective. I think M. Night sort of got caught up in that whole shock ending that kind of maybe hurt some of his movies moving forward. Maybe his first one was ultimately his best, but for me, number 3 was The Sixth Sense.
Yeah, can't argue. Great all around. Frightening. Just great movie making. I also loved Unbreakable, which I know you did too. But yeah, The Sixth Sense was really something special. That's a good pull right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
The movie guy giving me some credit.
Yeah, that's a good pull. So you have 2 Bruce Willis movies in your...
Shockingly enough, I do.
Yeah, look at that. And a Chevy Chase movie.
I do. You want me to hit up?
Number 2.
My number 2 is E.T.
I love it.
I left the theater crying. I, of course, was a little boy at the time. I think maybe the greatest family movie of all time. Up until that point, we sort of had a run of extraterrestrial movies where they were the bad guys who wanted to kill us. This one, they were actually friendly. The bond between E.T. and Henry Thomas. Maybe one of those early movies. I'm sure they had others, but sort of juxtaposed the government as maybe not trusting the government having things to hide. I'm shocked myself because, I don't really enjoy too many family movies, but this is one that I absolutely loved. Left the theater crying. I know they even brought back E.T. for that commercial for one of the cell phone companies.
I cried at that one.
To me, number 2 was E.T.
E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Well, E.T. is a game changer. It's not on my list. Maybe it should be. I remember when they re-released E.T. in the theater back in the early 2000s. I was living in California, and I went to see it in the theater for the first time in almost 2 decades. I saw it, and then I went home, and then I went back the next day and saw it again. I think I might have seen it 5 days in a row because I was just, of course, I wasn't working at the time. Really, in the 20 years since, I'd forgotten what a special movie that is. And that movie actually ruined my life because it got me hooked on Reese's Pieces. And, now I have 35 medicine bottles. They're paying for that. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Steven Spielberg's masterpiece, and a masterpiece of movie making by all counts. Good pick.
All right.
Very good pick.
I'm excited. Let me hear your number 2.
Okay, my number 2, you'll be happy because this cements your victory in our one-on-one guess. As you probably know, my number 2 is Rocky.
Got it.
Yes, Rocky, the original. I rewatched some of these over the last couple of weeks, and I rewatched Rocky as well. I don't know how the hell he did it. Just somebody who had never written a script before, who was barely even an actor. He just writes this movie where every single note is hit. At the beginning, you see he's a bum. He's this pug fighter. You go and you meet the bums he hangs out with. You meet Paulie. You see the shy girl across the street. So after about 20 minutes, you know exactly who this guy is. And then it gets hit with the thing you want to fight for the championship. And then it turns it up to a whole. And seeing the reaction of the people around him with Mickey. And I mean, just, there's too much to unpack to talk about it here. But number 2 is the original Rocky.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal choice. To me, with Rocky, which maybe didn't hold true for some of the sequels, there's no filler. I mean, every scene is moving that storyline forward.
Those are my favorite movies, where every single thing you see is there for a reason. It's not just to get a laugh. It's not just to, we got to throw in an action piece here. We got to do this there. No, every moment counts. And Rocky is a perfect example of that.
It's aged well, too.
Yes, it has. It really has. So, Rocky number 2. And now we're getting into the number 1 picks. So I'm going to do mine first.
Go ahead.
It will surprise you. I don't think you see it coming. Wait, let me set it up here. A little suspense. My number 1 pick is Good Morning Vietnam.
Wow.
My favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
Good Morning Vietnam, more than any other movie, made me change the way I watch movies. Up until that point, I did not know movies could move you like this one did and surprise you like this one did. I saw it in the movies. One of the first R-rated movies I saw, a friend's mom took me and my friend, and we thought we were going to see Popeye Goes to Vietnam. You know, Robin Williams. That's really what we thought. You know, we were even too young to understand or to know about Mork and Mindy. But we knew Robin Williams from Popeye. We said, there's Popeye. He's going to be on the radio. To say that now is an insult. This movie, it's not even a black comedy. It's a comedy that just rips your heart out. Robin Williams cemented himself as probably one of the top 10 movie stars of all time. The things that he was able to do, the emotions he was able to project while still making the audience laugh, even in the darkest of situations. That movie just really, truly blew me away. And I think Good Morning Vietnam made me want to be involved in the movies more than any movie I've seen. I just realized what great writing and great movie making was by seeing that movie. Number 1 for me, Good Morning Vietnam.
Interesting pick. I didn't see it coming. You know, you mentioned Robin Williams, top 10. I don't disagree with that, but when I think of great actors of my time, you know, Robin Williams doesn't really come up there. You know, if I had to pick a Robin Williams movie, actually The World According to Garp would probably be the call for me, but I can't argue with it. Yeah, I'm a little surprised at the pick. Can't argue with it.
I'll tell you, that's the one movie, in looking at my list from 10 to 1, that's the one movie that has been number 1 since I saw it and has stayed there. It has not moved. The other ones have moved, but Good Morning Vietnam has been there since I saw it and it's still there. Actually, I hope something comes along to knock it off its perch because I'd like to see some really great movies, but there's not much out there. They're not taking chances the way they used to. They have to check off all the boxes. Do we have a female lead? Because Good Morning Vietnam did not. Do we have an action sequence? Do we have a sex scene? Do we have enough cursing for the kids? You know, like all that crap. Good Morning Vietnam did not have to do that. Just had a story that it told, and it told it beautifully. And so that's number 1.
All right, let me get to my number 1.
All right, hold on. Moody's number 1.
All right, I'm a little shocked myself, but number 1 for me was The Terminator.
Why are you doing this to me? You're making me feel guilty. The Terminator actually was going to be on the list of things that I would have guessed of yours, but I didn't want to be too predictable.
You mentioned about movies that I saw in the theater, which is correct. My introduction to Schwarzenegger, just different than T2, great origin story. I think when you watch it Some of the special effects, unfortunately, have not aged great, but I think the practical effects, the action, I had not seen anything like that up to that point. The movie's lean. It's the archetype for the amazing chase movie, which I've always said Terminator at a core. You could talk all the science fiction, but it's a chase movie. You got a package, you got to get it from point A to point B. The setup of this unbelievable force that's trying to get to it, and how do you avoid it while keeping this package safe? Introduction to Cameron, introduction to Schwarzenegger, and I remember as a young movie fan just being blown away by the action, the brutality of it. It's a rough rated R movie.
Unforgiving.
Sets the pace for T2, which is similar to Aliens, completely different. But when I thought about the single biggest movie where I walked out and went, wow. And I was young and obviously different. For me, was Terminator.
I think that the primitive special effects in the Terminator serve it well.
Some of the scenes where the Terminator's in the hotel room and he's got the eyeball,
that scared the shit out of me.
When you look at it now, it looks a little old, it looks a little dated. The action sequences with the car chase, I had never seen anything like that in my life. I walked out of that theater exhausted. I was really geared up to see the next Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle. I was one of those young kids. Anything he put out, I was going to see. The next James Cameron vehicle, James Cameron was on my radar. Just pulse pounding right from the minute go. Introducing those great characters, Sarah Connor, the Terminator, Kyle Reese. I think the scene where Sarah Connor is in the police precinct, and what safer place could you be than a police precinct? The Terminator comes in and just picks off everyone one by one.
Yeah, as an audience member, there's nowhere to hide.
Terminator for me was my number one.
We've spoken about our favorite franchises, and with the exception of Rocky on my list, my second favorite franchise is the Terminator, and I didn't have any of those on my top 10. I love the Lethal Weapon franchise, not on the top 10, although Rambo is. So we agreed on two. We agreed on Die Hard and Goodfellas. The rest were completely different. So first we'll do mine. Number 10, Hoosiers. Number 9, Die Hard. Number 8, First Blood, the original Rambo. Number 7, Ghostbusters, not the one with the chicks, but the original one. Number 6, Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte in 48 Hours. Number 5, Robert De Niro going comedy with Charles Grodin in Midnight Run. Number 4, De Niro again, back to the mafia ways in Goodfellas. Number 3, the original classic The Godfather. Number 2, Stallone's opus Rocky. And number 1, Good Morning Vietnam, starring the late, great Robin Williams.
Let me break you down my top 10.
Okay, go for it.
Number 10, the Bruce Willis vehicle, Die Hard. Number 9, De Niro and Company, Goodfellas. Number 8, I think the greatest Tom Hanks movie of all time, Forrest Gump. Number 7, Chevy Chase at his funniest, Vacation. Number 6, the greatest popcorn action movie of all time, Terminator 2. Number 5, the greatest science fiction action movie of all time, Aliens. Number 4, I don't know if it's the greatest, but the underdog, bully, drama, action movie of all time, The Karate Kid, the original, Ralph Macchio. Number 3, the ending that took my breath away, The Sixth Sense. Number 2, maybe the greatest family movie of all time, E.T. And number 1, the one that started it all, Schwarzenegger, Cameron, The Terminator.
You did see all these in the theater. That's the difference.
Yes.
That's one difference between our lists. Do you think that The Karate Kid is a better movie than the original Rocky?
No.
Okay. This is just your personal favorite.
Yes. I've often said to you, even on any podcast where we're breaking down pop culture, whether it's music, movies, we could really like something and like it a lot and know that it's not great. And I don't mean that for The Karate Kid. No, definitely Rocky is better film. It's going to go down in history. But I had to think about, for my top 10, what movies did I walk out after seeing? And yes, it just so happened that I went and actually saw all these in the theater, but was somewhat of a changed young man when I left The Karate Kid.
Okay. About National Lampoon's Vacation, what moment in that movie do you think Chevy is at his absolute funniest?
But I think the scene where the camera pans, he's driving late at night, the family's asleep, the wife's asleep, and then they show the dad asleep at the wheel, and it goes construction barriers, hops some kind of crazy construction zone, and somehow miraculously lands into the parking lot of the hotel. And
up and at him, we're here.
Yeah, perfectly. And we're here.
Segues right into Beverly D'Angelo's breast.
The scene where he eats the sandwich after Aunt Edna, he spits out the sandwich, pisses on it. The scene where he shares the first beer with Rusty in the desert, and even the scene where he slams his fist in rage at
the moose.
Well, and then the cashier opens up and he jacks all the money. But I think the scene with definitely when he's sleeping at the wheel, I think and he doesn't even really speak much. It's just physical comedy. It's just great.
Well, I'll give you mine, and it's not even a big comedic set piece. It's just him being Chevy. I encourage you to watch it again if you don't recall what I'm saying. It's right after they get the vibrating bed going, and then they have to get on the floor, and then they're going at it on the floor, and the kids walk in. From then on, as Chevy tries to deflect what's really going on, just the hand gestures and his facial. Watch it again. I remember stopping it and rewinding it, and I was just laughing nonstop at just the little things that he was doing that probably weren't even in the script. So watch that scene again. Just focus on him. Is there a movie right now, not so much that's out right now, but that you could think of, that's not on either one of these lists? I mean, not on your top 10 or your honorable mentions, that after another year of aging, like a fine wine, might break into your netherworld there?
I'm sure there is. I probably would need time to think about that. I could give you the one that did not make it that's on my list that could make it with aging, but I already listed it as one of the ones that did not make it in my top 10.
Not cut out all the honorable mentions. It's got to be something that's nowhere.
That's a tough one. I'd have to really think about that.
Okay, but I'll give you mine real quick. Mine is a movie called Running on Empty.
Are you talking about the Billy Crystal?
That's Running Scared. And Running on Empty is with Judd Hirsch and River Phoenix, about the couple that blew up that factory in the 60s and was
I'm sorry. Wait.
And it doesn't even have the song in it, which is to credit. I hate movies that do that are named after a song and they actually use the song in the movie. They don't do that.
Mine would be Norma Ray. No, I have to think about that.
It's a beautiful movie.
But that's a good question. And I'm sure there are others that I've...
Have you ever seen Running on Empty?
No, I don't think I've seen it.
All right, that's your homework. Your assignment is to watch Running on Empty, and I'll even send you my password for Vudu so you can watch it for nothing. But I really want you to watch that movie. I think you'll appreciate it. We will be coming at you again shortly with another surprise bonus episode. We're not going to tell you what it is until it happens. So until then, we are going to let you go as our familiar theme song plays. We thank you. Follow us on Twitter at Nothing Groo. At Nothing Groo. It's Nothing Worthwhile with Moody and Groo. That is the Twitter handle. If there's something that you'd like us to cover on this podcast. But until then, quack, quack. Rest in peace, Don Imus. All we can say is, rip 'em.